DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
It's time for Tuesday Night Live Chat with Brian S. Red and John Young.
Mic okay now?
I hope your mic's okay because we're now live.
Oh, I did turn it up or something.
Well,
if there's a mic problem, someone say something.
Yeah, we'll get that all figured out here as we get going.
All right.
So one of the things people don't really know is between shows, first off, the conversation, the topics that we share, and then if there's the nights where we have that overlap of Ben hanging around for just a couple of moments afterwards, it becomes a
thing.
A thing.
So, a thing, yeah.
So we have to literally, Ben is walking out the door as the scene switches to get us on live tonight. So, but that was
welcome, hello, everybody.
So welcome to tonight's show. I don't. Superfly's not watching. I don't think with us. I'll have to get back to his question or his thing a little bit later. I think we are now. Yes, we are out at DJNTV everywhere. We're broadcasting. Yay! We did it right.
There's a thumbnail I can look at on YouTube.
Right. We did it right. Yay!
All right. Cool. Well, hello everybody.
So Brian, you've been a busy man with your with videos and hitting different topics this week. So there's a few of them we can discuss.
Cool. Let's do it.
So the first one, because this is our topic, or what I wanted to put on there, is because this is a question, you did the video on talking about adding subwoofers to your sound system. And I wanted to kind of dig into that just a little bit and talk about that. Then today you talked about the whole issue about standing and sitting and working with the crowd. So those will be, let's use those as our two kind of main topics for tonight. For those wondering where Jay is, Jay's will be with us again next week. And then in a couple of weeks when we're all in Las Vegas, we're going to see if we can all get together and do something live from Las Vegas as a group from out there. So
I think we should be able to handle that.
I think we should.
I think that's something that's manageable since,
we're all there.
So
we're all there. The only question will be is that there's also the coffee shops that are right there, so we could be completely buzzed on espresso. It'd be like shaking. Okay, so let's talk about subwoofers a little bit. Brian, first off, for those who haven't had a chance to watch the video, kind of give us a little synopsis of what you were covering in the videos you were doing when you were discussing different things with subwoofers.
Well, I talked about a lot of audio stuff, and what I was trying to do was go from one video to the next with the questions that were in the last video. Mm-hmm. So people would ask, well, what about this? And then I'd try to cover it in the next video. So I was on a roll there for a few days, and I was trying to approach it as layman as possible because I am not Ben Stowe. He was on the last show. I'm the dumb DJ who just tries to make things sound right and patrols the room and sees what sounds good and what doesn't sound good. So talked about a lot of things. Talked about complete setups, and then talked a little bit about if you have a subwoofer that's distorting, if you simply just turn that volume down, it's going to help quite a bit. And talked about running them with Evolve 50s. There's a lot of stuff we talked about.
Yeah, I watched a couple of them where you were talking about the high pass filter. Mm-hmm. You were kind of digging into that just a little bit, and that's one of the areas I kind of wanted to dig into with the show tonight. When you were referring to the high pass filter, were you hooking into the Evolve 50 and it coming out?
Well, okay.
What did you have set
Just,
up?
just to say what I mean, and again, not an audio engineer. That guy was on the last show, but a high pass filter is basically something that you can activate that only allows certain signals from whatever frequency you set it out up to go through the speaker, where a low pass would be the opposite. Frequencies at a certain hertz and below only pass through that speaker. So my theory, I think what you're talking about is on the subwoofer itself. It has a low pass filter. You can set it at several things. It's usually at default at about 100 hertz. Excuse me, that's the setting. On some subwoofers, they actually give you a high pass filter of 100 hertz by default when you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So any signal coming out, you know, like when you run a main out of your mixing board, you would first run it to your subwoofer, usually when you're hooking up a system. And it would just be like, you know, main out of your mixer, subwoofer in, left and right you can do on a speaker. Or you can go, you know, separate with those subs. You can run 2 subs, you can run 1, it doesn't matter. You can usually run 2 main line inputs into a single subwoofer. And the reason you can do that is because some people just use a single subwoofer and then they run 2 tops off of that. Okay. So on the Electro Voice subwoofer, when that low pass filter is just there by default. You can't turn it off. Mm-hmm. There's a low pass filter regardless. You can set it whatever you want, but it's at something. 100 hertz is at default. And when the signal passes through those Electro Voice subwoofers, it comes out. What do they call that? They call it mix out.
Yeah.
And mix out is just full frequency, what's coming out of your mixing board. There are other subwoofers that have the option of going high pass filter out. So you can actually activate a high pass filter within the subwoofer so that signal coming out isn't mix out anymore. It's crossed over at 100 hertz and above, or whatever you have your subwoofer set at. I don't know if that was confusing as hell or not. I tried to do videos that are a little more smooth than that. But point being was, if someone wanted to run an Evolve 50 with a subwoofer, if you had one with a high pass filter out, then your 12-inch subwoofer in your Evolve 50 would then kind of become a mid-bass subwoofer. And it wouldn't have to worry about any sub-bass anymore. Your sub is taking care of that. The Evolve 50 does not have a high pass filter built into it that would be effective for what we're trying to do. And the EV subwoofer does not have the high pass filter output option. So that's what I was talking about. But you can get subwoofers that have that high pass filter out option. Yep. The FBT one I have has it. RCF subwoofers, a lot of those have it. In fact, Wavy Davy was asking, well, will mine do that? And I looked at his sub and the specs on it, and sure enough, yeah, it will. You can run high pass filter out, and it's selectable too, as to what you run for high pass filter out. So,
yeah, that's one of the that high pass filter where the sub is actually dividing the signal and sending part of the signal there, part of the signal there. Some of the companies, I believe that the Alto sub that I have, I believe that's how that is. I don't know if I can defeat that. That it is always, in essence, being that crossover, that high pass filter where it's sending out the high signal. On
I think my old ZLX A1 was like that from EV.
I think so too. I think that particular one, I don't believe any of the other EVs have been that way since that time. Right. I think everything is a pass through with that.
It's not a bad thing. I mean, the only time it gets weird is if you're trying to run multiple subwoofers. Mm-hmm. And you're sending a high pass filter out to an additional subwoofer. That's goofy.
Yeah, then it takes off all the low frequencies and
then it's useless. But you know, otherwise it's kind of nice. I mean, for us, for our applications, if we're only running one subwoofer, 2 subwoofers, or whatever in stereo, to have that high pass filter option going out to our top cabinets. Mm-hmm. But you know, most top cabinets do have a built-in high pass filter setting. The Evolve 50 just doesn't. It wasn't designed to really work that way.
Right.
I think when it was designed, the theory was, hey, this is going to be a lightweight, easy system for people to use that kind of encompasses everything they need. A little bit of sub bass, mid bass, dogs, sorry. Mm-hmm. And all that's, the full frequencies coming out of this column. When people say they want to add subwoofers to the Evolve 50, I can't help but think to myself, this isn't an easy compact system anymore. You're getting weight to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But some people still want to do it, to make a system more versatile. I guess I understand, but
one of the areas that we at NAMM, you looked at the LD systems. What was that? The Maui 44?
Maui 44 G2.
G2, and that is actually a system designed to add a second subwoofer to.
Yes.
And people were like, well, I can just add a second, okay, the Evolve is a 12-inch sub, so I'll just add a second 12-inch sub, because in the ELX200 line, there is a 12-inch sub. Now, there's a little bit of a difference, and what's kind of cool about that LD systems is that it has a matching sub.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's really become important is that and Ben Stowe has talked about this, and I actually talked to an audio tech guy today that wasn't Ben. It's just as confusing as Ben at times.
It's always confusing. Yeah, I just try to keep it simple. In our conversation.
Yeah, the two big things he was referring to that are problematic is noise cancellation, which we've talked about that, and we'll talk in a second, and then time alignment problems.
Right.
Is that all subwoofers are not created equal, and you're going from model to model within the same company, or if you're going from brand to brand, that the speed in which the speaker attacks is different from sub to sub, and it's different from size of sub to size. So a 12-inch is going to attack different than a 15 or an 18.
Right.
So what you end up happening is you have wavelengths coming from one and frequencies coming from one, and you've got the other, and you're going to have some canceling that happens. So it's not like you're getting the best of both worlds. You're actually losing a little bit. So you lose your portability, and you're losing. You're not getting that sound at the level you would like.
Right. No, agreed. And that's why I had it all out, and I was looking at it, and I was like, boy, with a high pass filter, this would be so cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You could basically turn that Evolve 50 subwoofer into what I thought would be a pretty aggressive little
mid-range,
tight, punchy mid bass. You can't. So
yeah, your alternative, your options are to turn it all the way off, and then have to try to fill in those ranges, because the subwoofer isn't going to. I don't remember where the crossover is from the bottom to the top, but it was pretty. It was higher because of those 3.5-inch cones up there.
Right. I think it's full range up there. Oddly enough.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that a little bit more. So
if I remember right, that's a full range up top, which I thought was weird, but it is.
Yeah, and again, that's, as Mike Dussault and a lot of people have talked about with the Evolve 50, is that they were designed for a certain task. Evie didn't design that for a high school dance. They didn't design that for a wedding for 500 or 1,000 people.
Right.
They were designed for a specific task. So again, we get back to those people who are like, oh, I want to add a couple of 18-inch subs to it. Then just put.
on one hand, I guess I kind of understand their point of view, because maybe what they're saying is that I typically do 150 to 200 person wedding receptions, and my Evolve 50s work fine for that. Occasionally, I do larger events, slightly larger, and maybe if I add a subwoofer to the system, it will help with the larger events. Maybe that's the point of view that they're coming from. A bit like maybe if you bought any other kind of system, if you got let's say an Electro Voice EKX system or was it ELX system with subwoofer. Sometimes you just bring the tops. Sometimes you bring tops and subs, depending on what you wanted to accomplish at your event. So maybe they were thinking of it in that regard, where it was like an expandable system if they needed to go a little bigger.
And the expandable system, I think that was probably the coolest thing about what we saw from LD Systems, is that became that expandable system that way. And again, it's designed to be that way.
That sucker is no joke. That system is not, I don't feel, is for wedding receptions. I think that's for something a little bigger. I mean, it would be for a big wedding reception, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out in March. But to me, this thing just looks like something that it's a 300+ event. I mean, this sucker is no joke. Maybe I'm off though. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe this thing would be fine for weddings. I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, it just seems like a bigger task machine. The whole thing is confusing to me though, because there were some people who were making the criticism that Evolve 50 or Evolve 30M wasn't the piece they were looking for. They really wanted theoretically what would be the Evolve 100 with a 15-inch sub and tops. And I'm thinking to myself, Yeah, but where's the portability at this point?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, then we have this LD Systems Maui 44G2, which, you know, is going to be a little more for a guy like me to handle than I may want to, but is more aggressive. I don't know. It's strange the way people are looking at these systems. I don't know if they're quite thinking it through, what they're really trying to achieve with them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
What the point is of even having them in the first place. If you're going to go big, go big. Get your two-way tops and sub.
And I think that whole idea of everybody wants to have the perfect sound system, the sound system that can do it all. And I don't know if that just doesn't exist.
Solstice says 30M didn't sound great at NAMM. Sounded like something was missing. I thought it sounded really good for what they were running through it at NAMM.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty impressed with that little system. Like, I have an event coming up in 2 weeks, and it's about 50 people. And I'm thinking to myself, when I booked it months ago, you know, the Evolve 50 is a little big for that.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work, but it's a little big for that. I can bring Maui 5 Goes. Maybe it's a little small for that. I don't know, but I could bring them. It would work, but for dancing, maybe it's a little small for that. I'm looking at these 30Ms, I'm like, this is the perfect speaker for this event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not trying to rip anybody's face off. I just want good, clean music, but I don't want it to be too aggressive or too loud. I don't want it to be not loud enough. This is a perfect middle-of-the-road speaker for doing something like that, I think. So I think it's neat.
Yeah.
And it's got some cool applications.
And I guess I was kind of surprised at the size of it because it's 2 inches smaller, 2 inch smaller sub, cone-wise, but really the footprint and everything was much smaller than the Evolve 50. So for those who are working out of the back end of their car, which is a lot of DJs, a small system that could handle 100 people for most events would get you right there.
I think that's what it is too. I think it's a 100 event person system. I don't think it's a 150 person event system. Maybe it is. I don't know. Again, we'll see what happens. Mike said he's sending over a set, so we'll find out.
Excellent.
Yeah, he told me last week that there's a system on its way. So hopefully we'll see it soon, and we can evaluate that. But I will, if it comes between now and my event next weekend, I will use it at that event, and kind of give it a test drive.
Excellent, Brian. Hang on. Talk for just a minute. I'll be right back.
I will talk for a minute. So those are some of the things we were talking about, and then the other thing that was discussed, I think, kind of, I don't know, as an underlying thing was, what size subwoofer do you bring to a wedding reception? And my argument on that is usually always a smaller subwoofer, like a 12-inch subwoofer, for the most part. And the reason I suggest this is, and I cannot get real scientific with you on this, again, not the audio engineer, but what I can tell you from experience is that the larger subwoofers produce lower bass frequencies, and those lower bass frequencies travel further into the room. And sometimes I don't feel like they're really realized until they get to the back of the room. Even a 15-inch subwoofer, you're going to hear a good boom at the back, but you're not really going to realize a whole lot going on your dance floor. So the smaller subwoofers aren't really producing as low of bass frequencies, but the frequencies they are producing are being realized closer to the dance floor. And when I go elsewhere in the room, I'm not hearing it as loud. And the reason that I like that is because conversation areas in rooms to me are important for events like wedding receptions. I don't want to chase anybody away.
Right.
Yep. So I try to keep my sound on the dance floor. And if I'm using a large subwoofer, even if it's turned down, I'm throwing frequencies further into the room than I would be with a small 12-inch subwoofer. And that's why the Evolve 50 is a beautiful piece.
It really is.
Yeah. It's already a 12-inch subwoofer, so it's perfect for what I want to do and what I want to achieve. I filled some time. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. No, that was good. So this is the bag. Here we go. This is the bag for the top for the little Evolve 30M.
Can you back up with that a little bit? So Is it like a backpack?
So
yeah, look at that.
There's the bag.
Very small.
A little backpack. I can't hear you, Brian, so I'll be right back.
I said backpack.
I wanted to go and pop that back in. Sorry about that.
No, I said backpack. You read my lips.
Yep. So what I wanted to do, though, is because this is a question that people have been asking about the poles. And, of course, the word came back that the poles were not interchangeable with the Evolve 50 poles. Right. Even though it's got a similar technology with the connections, it is a little bit smaller. Mm-hmm. Now, the pole with the Evolve 30 is a 2-piece pole. And you'd think, oh, I could use one, or I could use them together. Well, they've done something a little bit different with the poles, is that one of them is the extension pole. You have your traditional Evolve 50 connection on the other, and then the connection between the two poles is a 4. Yep, a little 4 connector. There you go. You can see that. So you put the two together, and you get that height that matches the Evolve 50 height.
Right.
But without that,
close to it.
Yeah, it's very, very close. I'm going to actually put the two together. I was going to do that today.
Yeah, it looked a few inches maybe off.
Okay, so it might be.
But pretty close. I actually asked Mike about that. I was talking to him at NAMM, and I know there's a shorter pole you can get for an Evolve 50.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why can't we do a taller pole? And, I'm just asking dumb layman questions.
Yeah. Questions we get. We've had that question.
And he says, well, the reason being is it's a balance thing. If we go higher on that
safety
that top, it's not gonna have the balance, and it's gonna get wobbly, and it's gonna be unstable, physically unstable. So for that reason, the regular pole your Evolve 50 has is your maximum height. So that's a pretty good explanation. Mm-hmm. I understood it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I asked a simple question. He gave me a simple answer.
Yeah.
So.
Mike on Facebook was talking about having some Yorkville speakers and such, and I think that's the thing is Mike's doing a traditional system with the subs and such, and they work well. And my son Michael, he's like, hey, I want to go get basically the biggest, loudest sound system he can find, because his idea is that I can always turn it down, but I can't, ask a small speaker to create a large sound, which is what a teenage boy wants to have. Yeah. That's logic I've used in the past as well. I have. It's kind of the more the more you learn and you try things. Mm-hmm. I brought out an RCF 705A, a single RCF 705A, to a wedding. It was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I was running it with some RCF 2A tops. And it was a big room, 200 people room, and it had a divider. So it was a big room, and then there were doors, and there was a bar beyond that. So I plugged everything in, we're rocking out, people are dancing and having fun. And I'm not really feeling a lot of bass. It's like, okay, I've got this 15-inch subwoofer, it's kind of weak, because I can't really feel it. I went out to the dance floor and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is kind of weak. It's not what I thought it would be. And then I went to the bar to get a drink, and it about knocked the fillings out of my teeth. All that boom was happening up there.
In the back.
Yeah.
It wasn't being realized in the front. And I was like, aha, okay, this is a problem. So maybe a smaller subwoofer is the way to go. And sure enough, it was the 12-inch. And the other thing I will note about that is just observations again. Most of the people were in that bar area beyond the divider because they didn't want to deal with that booming sound in the main room. I kind of chased them away.
Oh, sure.
So that was my learning experience on that. And that's the kind of stuff that I try to base my videos and recommendations on. Not particularly the science and math, but just kind of this is what I've done, this is what works, this is what I've done, this is what doesn't work kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've gotten to that point. At one time we ran, for my wedding shows, I was running dual 18s because I thought it was cool.
Yeah, right.
And the reality is that I'm happier with my sound now, and I don't have the complaints of people, saying, "Oh my gosh, that's it's giving me a headache." Da, 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 da. I don't have that. You have the people coming up saying, "Wow, it sounds great. I can hear the microphones. I'm not having this muddy sound and such." Right. So there's just the benefits have been there. So I
love it when I get unsolicited compliments on my systems.
Yeah,
and that's happened more since I have tried to build a little smarter, I guess. Mm-hmm. In fact, I got it Saturday. I did a little bar gig, And it was ridiculous. There was no reason the DJ should have been there. There was no room for a DJ. If you can picture a bar, like on this half of the room, like just the physical bar, people are like standing here serving drinks, right? And here's the bar. This was the rest of the room. There was nothing to it. It was just a shotgun place. Half of it was a bar, half of it was people getting drinks.
Sure.
There was no other area to go to. I was in this place DJing in front of the dartboard, you know, because there was no place to set, at an angle by the front door. It was cramped as can be. And I brought a single Maui 5 Go. And, you know, because they told me, you don't have a lot of room. You can't bring somebody. You know what? I got to turn off my Facebook thing. It keeps dinging.
Dinging at you, yeah.
I'm getting sick of that. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Usually people don't bother me when they know I'm broadcasting. But anyway, so I set it up and I'm playing it, and it was so loud and crowded in there. I'm like, wow, maybe I should have brought more sound. You know? But people came up to me and said, wow, that little speaker throws out a lot of sound. What's up with that thing? I said, well, does it sound okay out there? Oh, yeah, it's perfect. We can talk. Well, of course you can talk. I can hear every word you're saying. You know, it was very loud. But they could hear the music. They were enjoying the music. It wasn't overbearingly loud. I didn't bring, the suggestion was bring a single speaker and put it on a pole. And the reason I didn't really want to do that was because I knew people were going to be right up next to me. And I don't like it when I am honking a horn at anybody, which is exactly what a long throw top cabinet horn does. It honks at people, especially if they're close up, because it's designed for long throw applications. I don't care how big it is. It could be an 8-inch speaker. Horns are aggressive with that. I guess they call it mid-high. It's real aggressive that comes out of those horns. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted something smoother, and I felt like, you know, something like a full range speaker on an array would be a lot easier at a near field listening, you know, for near field listening.
Sure,
or anyone who was there. So, anyway, well, Jay is in the room.
Yeah. Excellent. Let's move on to the next topic then. Cool. Today's video, you talked a little bit about the situation where how did you something about was it clapping? DJ's not clapping? What did you have that titled?
I think I called the video "Mobile DJ Stand and Clap If You Can."
Oh, there we go. Stand and clap. Yeah, there we go.
If you can. If you can. That's important because some people can't.
And just to give you guys a little synopsis, Brian was talking about the way at one time and getting the crowd up and moving and such, and that was, you know, part of what we would do. And he had an experience with a boss, and he went into more detail on that. And then today, because of having better quality sound and better our music and being able to play things like we do, that we don't really have to, or we're not engaged, don't need to engage the crowd like we once did.
Right. It was so necessary that we did as much as we could as far as engagement went to encourage people to dance or whatever. Now, my sound system's impressive. My light show's impressive. I can put a tune on and they'll come out and dance because they like the song. You know, back in the old days, that wasn't the case. I had some, what I referred to in the video as very brown paper bag music. It was just kind of enough to have a little bit of everything for everybody, but nothing that's going to make anybody real excited, if that makes any sense to you. It's like turning on the radio. You're not going to hear your favorite song that's going to just, you're not just going to say, oh my God, they're playing my tune. You're going to hear stuff that's just good enough for you not to turn the dial. That's all it is. And that's all it needs to be. They want you to stick around and listen to the commercials. They're not going to polarize anybody by playing your absolute favorite song that just happens to be a song that somebody else hates. They're going to play as much middle-of-the-road stuff as they can to keep everybody around. That's kind of what our music libraries were designed to do back in the old days with that company I worked for. It was just kind of standards and nothing too crazy. The sound system didn't sound good. The light show wasn't really that great. So, yeah, I mean, we were dancing. We were clapping our hands. We had loud kind of suits on. We were just trying to be as engaging as possible.
Right.
There was a lot of things that we, you know, would turn on the microphone and say to try to hype the crowd. Everybody having a good time, and just you're a party clown, you know. That's how it was, and that's kind of where the whole. I believe that's kind of where the whole notion of the cheesy mobile DJ came from. It was back in those days we did those kind of things.
Oh, exactly.
But we did them for a reason, though. It wasn't because we wanted to be cheesy. It's because that's what we had to work with, our personalities. Where today, if you have a knowledge of music and you have the right music and you have a nice system, and you don't need to do all that stuff anymore.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, there was a couple of different angles I wanted to go to, but one of them is we go back 30, 40 years ago when some of us started. Yeah. Music was a tough thing to get a hold of. We would listen to the radio to hear our favorite song, and we might be listening all day before we'd hear it, and that's when, if we were trying to record it, what have you. Today, their favorite song is, hey Siri, play da-da, and it's there.
Right, it's very easy.
So it's one of those things that when there's a song, people all have access to it, and there's that connection that people are like, hey, we all are familiar with Bruno Mars to a point. Back 30 years ago, people weren't all, because if they weren't listening to the exact right station, and the stations weren't as homogeneous across the country as they are right now. No, not at all. You would have a top 40 station in one market that wasn't the same as what the top 40 station in a different market was. And they would be playing completely different things. So we would play a song for, let's say I'm from out of the Minneapolis market, I would play a song that I knew was popular there. In St. Cloud, which is an hour away, they would have very little idea. So now I've got a song, and what do I do with it? Because I can't go, I'm on tapes or I'm on whatever. I can't just go switch like I can on a computer. I've got to do something. Well, now I need to bring that energy and bring that fun to try to keep people engaged and entertained.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was tough for us as Milwaukee DJs to do gigs in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because it was just a very different vibe. Mm-hmm. They were playing different things on the radio. I mean, they were getting things like house music was a regular thing for them. This wasn't a weirdo, exotic type of music. This was everyday stuff they heard on B96. Where we lived, you'd have to go to a special club for that, or you'd have to go to the record store and buy that. We didn't have it on the radio. So, yeah, the regional thing's kind of gone. And music was not, as you say, not as homogenous as it used to be. But yeah, it was like kind of that mix of stuff that just kind of worked. But anyway, the philosophy was do what you can as an entertainer to motivate the crowd. And the thing you were talking about with that first night out with the guy who owned the company, he was kind of a militant dude. He was never in the military, but he was militant. I don't know what that was all about. But he told me on my first night, he said, I don't pay you to sit, I pay you to stand. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not asking you to get a record for me, clap your hands to the music. So, I can't clap anymore, which I also acknowledge in the video. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, we're clapping my hands to the most ridiculous songs that I would never clap my hands to and get excited about. Mm-hmm. But it looked cheesy because it was. It was not genuine at all. It was forced. But it was one of those things that you could do that a lot of people would see as, hey, the DJ's having a good time and enjoying themselves. I'm going to join in and come out and dance. Right. Maybe they felt sorry for me. I don't know. At any rate, they would come out and dance because of the body language that was happening. Yeah. So what I was saying was, in the video, my point kind of was in a roundabout way. There are folks out there who can't stand up. And I get it. Yep. I'm disabled. There are some folks out there in wheelchairs, people out there with back problems or whatever the case might be. It's their business. It's not mine. For whatever reason, they can't stand all night. And I'm lucky that I can. Mm-hmm. I'm able to. And despite my limitations, I can do that. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. If you can, do it. I highly recommend you do it. If you're just being a lazy turd and sitting down when you have no physical limitations of standing, you should stand. But if you can't, compensate for that. I think that's probably one of the most obvious, maybe visual cues we could give our audience is just standing up, even to this day. But if you can't do it, there are other things you can do, Like, just kind of enjoy yourself, bob your head to the music, make eye contact. You know, I do that all the time, even as a standing guy.
Right.
If somebody's looking at me, I look at them and I smile, you know. That's a big deal. Just look like you're having a good time. Don't look bored. I think when people sit, they tend to look bored sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so smile and bob your head and do other things, I think, to kind of make up for the fact that you can't stand. And again, the good news is we all should have pretty cool music libraries now. And good sound is not a real exotic concept. Most people have good sound now, which is what we were trying to make up for and overcompensate for our standing and clapping back in the old days. So. Pretty much,
yeah. Because I'm thinking when you mentioned that the old days with the poor sound quality, of course we didn't think it was that.
We did our best, John.
Yeah, that's what was available to us. Yes, there were more expensive options that probably would sound better, but we did what we could. But it was that time that we had to do that to engage. And that, as I was listening and thinking, when I was training DJs in the late 90s and early 2000s, and the emphasis, not so much of the stand or sit, that wasn't really a discussion. It was that looking, the early in the night, the audience basically, we have to bring the energy to demonstrate that energy, demonstrate that we're here to have fun and we're going, we're excited and happy to be there, what have you. And then eventually, at some point in time, then the audience is going to start to reflect that energy back to us. And then it's like our energy has to start the night, and then the audience will come up, and then they'll start dancing and having a good time. And then eventually, we can feed off the audience's energy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that we used to teach the staff is that you're like, oh, you got to be on for 4 hours. You got to be smiling and doing this. It's like, you don't understand. It's like a half an hour. That
once you get it going, you're okay.
Yeah, it's once it gets rolling, that there's just this thing when people are hooting and hollering and that energy coming back to you. And then I was thinking when you mentioned the microphone thing, once that gets going, if we start doing some of that cheesy stuff today that you hear Jay Brannon does all the time, we start adding some of that cheesy stuff to our shows, and it's going to break some of that energy that's going to be coming back to us from that dance floor. So
it will.
Times have changed.
Yeah. Quite a bit. I still do the old school tricks. I mean, I've evolved quite a bit. I mean, as an MC, as a DJ, but old habits die hard. And I'm just thinking about, without going into a thing about it, the Super Bowl, the halftime show. Did you see the floor? The LED floor they were dancing on and
there was
performing
a floor
on? Yeah, there was a floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's this one lady and this other lady, and then
Yeah, most people missed it.
Yeah.
I live with the Puerto Ricans, so I see that kind of stuff every day. But the floor was cool. It was like a circle, the dance floor, and it had these offshoots on it that were rectangular, like walkways where they would walk into the audience. And there was one point in the show where and it was an aerial shot they did, and you look down on the floor, and it looked like you were looking down off of like a mountain. And then all of these little offshoots, these catwalks, became rivers that were flowing into this cliff thing, and the water was falling into it. It was really cool. And it was really neat, And so there was that effect, and there was, of course, the songs that they did, and then there was the dancing, and there was all of these things. If you took away any one of those things, you still would have had a very entertaining show. So if there was no dance floor, an LED floor that did effects, it would have been cool. If the girls didn't sing at all or have any vocals going on at all, it would have been an entertaining show. If they hadn't danced at all, we probably would have liked it. But it was all of these things combined that really made for this big, wow factor thing that people are talking about. I know it's polarizing, but for the most part, it's received very well. It's kind of the same thing when we're gigging. Yeah, we've got a light show that's wowing. We've got a sound system that people can feel, and most of us do anyway. A good solid sound system, and we've got good files, and we've got good music. So yeah, we don't have to stand up and do things, but if you can, it's just icing on the cake.
Right.
So although it's not necessary, and it doesn't mean it's going to break your performance, it can still improve it. It's an observation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a the idea is that I guess I don't want people to think that if you can't do this, that, or the other thing, it doesn't mean that you're a bad DJ or that you can't be successful.
Right. Not the point. But if you can do it.
But if you can't wear the clown wig and wear the clown pants like Jay Brandon does when he's doing his shows, no, you can't be successful. I'm sorry, you can't. If you can't.
We used to have it was standard equipment. Excuse me, for years. Do you ever carry a tambourine with you?
Yes, we had a box of props that had inflatable guitars. We had tambourines, we had drumsticks, we had inflatable drumsticks, we had the saxophones. In there, we also had some ukuleles, plastic ukuleles in that.
Wow.
We had and
hula hoops.
Those were for when we did games, but this is for the weddings. And then you had some other things, the sleeves that we used for the hot thing. Lays, we were part of the hot thing.
Right.
We had the village people costumes that we would dress the groomsmen up in. Oh man, yeah, we had. Anyway, so yes,
we didn't have all of that, but we always had like a legit professional grade. If anything in our system was professional grade, because nothing was. We were using household light bulbs, behind our gels and things. It was all very, very budget. But if we had anything that was pro grade, it was that tambourine.
Nice.
That tambourine was legit, like a tambourine you'd see on stage with Fleetwood Mac or whatever. It was a real deal. That was standard equipment. Sometimes we'd be on the tambourine instead of clapping. Sometimes we'd throw it into the audience, let somebody else carry it around and lead the freaking bunny hop with it, or party train, or locomotion, or whatever. I mean, it was those kind of things that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And you ever wonder why we had to go to those great lengths? I mean, again, the libraries are relatively standard, but in my mind, as a young man, the way I always looked at it was, well, I could go to any club right now and it's going to be better. So I've got to make this experience as weird and fun as possible.
See, in my way of looking at it is, people wanted to come and watch the band because they wanted to watch people doing something, performing. And as a DJ, all of a sudden, it's like, I've got to do something. So let's do the wild, crazy guy thing, or, going that route. So there's something for them to watch.
Yeah, that's valid too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we would overcompensate.
What do you do now, John? I mean, having said you've got a premium sound system, a premium light show, you're charging a premium, you're getting the dough even in the middle of nowhere where you live, you're getting a premium for your services. Aside from all of the technology that you have in front of you, what are you doing as a performer?
Obviously making announcements during that dinner time, the cocktail and dinner time is something that I spend more time doing now than I did back then. And there's times where just using some humor and engaging people as you're introducing, working back and forth with the crowd, I do more of that improv things.
Yeah.
I get into the dance. I do so much less in the dance today than I've done really at any other time in the past. There were times where we had 10 different little activities, whether it's doing the Survivor wedding party or the YMCA or this, that, or the other thing. There was always something that we were doing at one point in time, but those things have become so passé that I don't do any of that. And it becomes, there might be something where I'll get on a microphone and engage the crowd, not in a, hey, how you doing? It'll be like, it'll be like, Bob, you shouldn't be doing that. Everyone, you think Bob should be doing that? Because, yeah, and then that'll be it. That's about the extent of the engagement. And just because the times have changed and such.
They have.
But I find today that I am much more conscious of the music and how long it's playing and reading the dance floor and such, whereas at one time it's like, okay, I play a song and, well, people start to dwindle and all of a sudden the dance floor is empty. 10 years, 15 years ago, it's like, well, the song's only 2 minutes, got 2 minutes left and we'll finish it up and then go to the, change and go to a different thing. The last few years hasn't been the case. It's like, okay, if you start to see the interest starting to wane a little bit, it's getting into something else right away. We're going to work into, mix out of that into something else that's going to hopefully be able to connect with people or take them to a slow song because I danced them too hard and I should have known better than to dance them, tie them up. So the entertaining has changed tremendously from what it was at one time.
Well, for me, I mean, there are certain songs that I'm genuinely happy that I'm playing. And I mean, I'll be the one to just say it. I never shoot video of myself at shows, just because it's hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I try to just kind of show you what's happening or whatever. When I play the song "Happy" by Pharrell, I am dancing. I don't care. I'm dancing. I'm lip syncing it.
Yeah.
I'm not making eye contact with anybody while I'm doing it. I'm just doing it as I'm in the mix or whatever.
Yeah, bouncing around. Yeah.
I'm doing this. There are times when people look at me, and I've noticed this, where I'm playing a song and the crowd's reacting to it, but then someone's curious as to how I'm going to react to it. And I get busted just standing there sometimes. And I consciously think about that. I'm like, you know what? I should always kind of be moving a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not moving to that particular track, if it's something on my headphone, I should be moving to it a little bit. Just not necessarily being a party clown, but just being a bit animated, not stiff.
Yeah.
And I smile. If people look at me, I smile at them, and they smile back. It's nice. Just the little dumb things. I'm an adult now. You don't have to tell me to stand and clap my hands, But I do understand that, yeah, once in a while, regardless as to how much I don't want to make this show about me, people do look at me.
Oh, certainly.
And when they do, I want them to see a guy who's not bored or wishes he was somewhere else, not somebody else. I wish it was somebody else. No, wishes he was somewhere else. I want to just look like I want to be there. Just, I'm glad I'm there. And I'm glad that the girl looked at me. And it's cool. So.
Is it
dance
okay?
All night 45.
Yeah.
Is it okay to dance in the booth? Of course it is.
I think it's okay for us to be kind of bebopping around and such.
I don't know that I didn't invite anybody else to come and dance with you.
I wouldn't do that so much because...
Well, I wouldn't do it anymore. I think I probably would have done it when I was single. But,
yeah.
But yeah, today I think I'd discourage that type of behavior because the next thing you know, they want to drag you out for slow dances.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the areas in which dancing in the booth or dancing behind the system, back when you were the people are getting ready to do the electric slide. And it's like, wait, and you're wanting to try to coach or guide them along a little bit, and you try to do some of those things. I can see some of those things being there, but, yes, I can start it from behind my booth, but if I can somehow get out onto the dance floor with them and help them get it started out on the dance floor, one of them is, oh yeah, the DJ helped a little bit, or they'll forget about it. The other one is the DJ got us going, and that one's when it will help you get referrals for those of you who can do that. It's
more engaging.
It's more engaging. Yep.
But only engaging when you need to be engaging. I mean,
exactly.
That's, I think the trick. That's really the $1 million question. When should you be engaging, and when should stroke? When should you just back off?
Exactly. Yeah. There's a time for that, because when it becomes not only us performing, but it becomes the show is all about us. It's like, well, but it's not the bride and groom. They're the stars of the day. The couple's the star of the day. And there's times where it can be, the crowd's responding, and you can almost like feel you're taking over some of that spotlight. And that's not a healthy thing either, because if it's all about me and I was in a venue once, probably about 10 years ago, and I could hear the DJ in the other room because I had my back to the wall, and he was doing a drop every, probably 15 minutes, DJ Frankie B, the hottest, whatever it was. I could hear the drop.
Hottest.
Yeah.
The hottest.
Yeah.
DJ.
It was a drop that was made by somebody, and it would be every few songs you would hear it. And it's like,
probably Wavy Davy.
Yeah. It sounded like a Wavy Davy. Not that it was, but it's,
right.
following that ability and such. But I just, the show, and at that point I'm thinking to myself, it's not like, it's Ted and Susan's wedding anymore. It's DJ Frankie B,
right.
With the hot.
There's a time and a place for it, though. Yeah. I mean, I can see a certain part of the evening. and I've had people say this to me before. Hey, look, we want a family friendly thing, and grandma and whatever, just a mix. But there's a certain point of that night where we just want to have a party. We want to turn into a club, and at that point, you know, maybe if you feel like you need to hype yourself with the event, that's when you do it.
Maybe.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, again, you've got to kind of have some kind of intuition about this and know when it's appropriate and when it's not.
So, and then, okay, so as we're mentioning, maybe I'm going to take you on a gig where it was all about that and more. A wedding that Lori did probably about 10 years ago, give or take, was a wedding for 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
In that particular case, it was full-on interaction. It was full-on engaging. It was, you know, leading them in claps and leading them in the YMCA and being out there.
She was pulling teeth, basically.
She was, well, actually, she the way she describes it is she was part of the party because she was out there being that party motivator with, you know, doing the music and different things. But it was one of those things where she was having to be part of that party because it was a smaller crowd, and she could have a better grasp for where they were in there. You know, okay, if I danced them too much because I've had to be out there leading them in this and that dance and teaching this,
right?
And she was interactive the whole night, and they absolutely loved it, and it was a great evening. Those events those events are out there. I mean, there's times where you're going to run into that event where they're going to want the chicken suit that people have been referring to in the chat room. It's just, we have to know what we're up against, really.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best compliments I ever got as a DJ, and I remember it was a guy I went to school with, and I hadn't seen him or talked to him, I mean, probably since before high school, but I ran into him at this wedding. We're adults, of course. I'm running my company. I did an event for one of our schoolmates. He happened to be a guest. And when it was over with, he was helping me load out. And I said, well, what do you think? He said, you know what was cool about it? He says, it wasn't like you were the DJ. You were like a guest who just happened to be providing a service.
Mm.
And I really liked that. So what that said to me was, and he knew me,
right,
but we had not been acquainted for a long time. But that compliment just meant a lot, and I'll never forget it. It meant a lot to hear that from him, because he didn't know me as a DJ, really. He knew me as the guy from school, and really felt like that I was able to balance, that I was able to be personable enough where I was comfortable there and I looked like I belonged there, yet entertaining enough for people to have a good time. So I don't know. I just thought that was a really good compliment, and I'll never forget that. Yeah,
that is kind of a cool thing when they mistake you. Are you family? Are you part of the?
I've gotten that. Do you know Jason and Karen? No, I met them 6 months ago, and we spoke earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you really seem to understand. Yeah, it's all good, man. I'm glad I'm here. You guys are good people.
Yeah.
And then you also get that whole thing where it's like, wow, this was a fantastic night. You know, you were you know, it was great. Thank you for everything you did. And then you look at me, you're like, well, you know, you guys helped. You know,
yeah,
you were a really good crowd. So you know, I always do my best, but if I've got a good crowd in front of me, it's easy. And that is the case a lot of times. And then, like the gig that Lori had, they weren't bad people, but they just needed a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And she was that leader.
Yeah.
And that does still happen, you know. I have a feeling the event that I do in 2 weeks, I'm doing with Art. It's English and Spanish. I got this really weird feeling that we're going to have to be leaders.
Sure.
And I don't know why I feel that way. I might get there and it's totally different. But just from talking to the client, I get that feeling. I don't know what the guests are all about, but I know what she's all about. And I think that she's going to need some hand-holding throughout the evening.
Sure.
It just happens.
And that does happen, yeah. We've got to be ready for that. Well, gosh, we've run to the end of our hour here.
It went well.
Yeah, went quick.
I didn't go off on anything weird.
No. Well, that was pretty much, we did that before we went live on the camera.
Yeah, we did.
We did our political rant.
With Ben.
Ben was ready to go with that. So,
Been unplugged.
we are. Let's see. Today is the 4th, so we are 3 weeks from tonight. We will be in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Coming to you guys live from the South Point Casino. Should be a fun time down there. Looking forward to that. If you guys are interested in joining us, airfare doesn't go up until 2 weeks out. So we've got a few more days to make a decision if you want to make it out there. Hotel rooms, I just checked the hotel rooms there. They've gone up to $79 a night, so still a great price. It's $10 higher than it was last week, so $79.
I mean, my big announcement with John was, because I called him up and I'm like, you know how it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission? He's like, oh no, what'd you do? Well, I just booked my daughter a ticket to come out with me to Vegas. So Stevie's going to be joining me for the first time. First time ever in Vegas. And the only time she's ever done anything like a DJ conference sort of thing was the West Coast DJs live in Moreno Valley, California when she was probably about 14.
Oh, wow.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So she met Drax and she met Morrow and she met some other people and she'll remember them when she sees them at our show.
Nice.
And she met Jay. She met some people. And Jay's been to my house, so she's through that as well. But yeah, it was $167 for that kid's ticket.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I paid more than that for my ticket a week earlier. So there's value in coming out there. And for those of you wondering what I'm going to be doing out there, I'm going to be doing what I do best, which is hanging out in a lounge. That's what I'm doing out there. I swear to you, that's my job.
That's your job, yes.
To go there and hang out in the chill lounge, which I'm kind of, I don't know, what do I say, directing a little bit maybe?
Yeah, you're going to be pretty much the head cook and bottle washer there.
It was kind of my brainchild, but it's been other people have gotten involved. I'll be working with Owen on that. I believe.
Yep, Owen should be in that room, so you'll be able to he'll be demonstrating some the Ape Labs lights.
Just creating some ambience with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just doing that, and there'll be a little music going in the background, and not too
I understand we're going to have some kind of small, low-key DJ setup in there.
That's the idea. Is we want to the idea with the DJ, the music in that room is I really want to do kind of like we have done in our music shows, where we spend more time playing those forgotten hits, that songs that make you go, I haven't heard that song in a long time. That's what I want in that room. That's
what I think is a good idea, and I think the volume should be super duper low.
Yep, I think we should be able to achieve that because we're going to be using the new Evolve 30Ms.
Oh, sweet!
And
Perfect.
Not that they're because of the speakers that they're going to be quiet. It's just going to be that room filling sound that's going to sound really good.
Right, which is exactly what I was envisioning for a chill lounge.
So we're putting it. It's coming together.
I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm sorry, John, I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, with that in mind. I don't DJ for DJs. It's not my thing. But if we're just sharing things and doing one of those, hey, have you ever heard this? Or, hey, do you remember this track? If that's the game, I'm putting a flash drive together.
Excellent. Because I was thinking about if we have a device there that we could plug in flash drives and then use that.
A lot of the new boards have that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we've got a couple of different things we were going to look at.
Cool. So. I'm just going to put together a comprehensive flash drive so I can just play some weirdo stuff.
I can guess some of them that may be on there.
Oh, really?
But I'm sure there's a few of them that I would have to go and refresh my thoughts from past music shows.
Well, probably some you've never heard before.
There's probably many of them.
I promise I will only play what in my estimation I would consider good music. I'm not going to play anything that you're used to hearing all the time. I'll play some interesting things. Some things where you might say, hey, what is that? Ask Jay. I've turned him on to some songs. In fact, Lola's theme was my fault. I introduced him to that track. I'm pretty good at that. That's my superpower. Is programming and finding cool songs that I think people might like.
Yeah.
So I don't want to DJ at a DJ conference because it's all about, let's watch his mixing thing. No, if we're really going to be focusing on the music, I'm in.
Yep, and that's what
Flash drive together, and I'll be there.
That sounds.
Well, I'll be there anyway, but I'll be
that way. You can share some stuff.
I'll share.
Well, wonderful. Thank you guys for being with us tonight on Facebook or YouTube. And again, any information with the show, it's actually all updated on the website out at djntv.com/show. Everything is there. All the seminar schedule, it's all there. Some of the little video clips from some of the presenters are there to go listen to, hear what they're talking about a little bit more. The Chill Lounge schedule is posted there. The masterclass, everything's there. Discount code is on there. Ticket link. Go check it out, djntv.com/show. And join us, because it's still, even today, if you really wanted to, you can go to Vegas and be with us for the week, and you could spend less than $500 if you really
easily.
Yeah. If you really wanted to. So thank you much for everyone. Brian, thank you much. And we'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.